Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's show. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Laura Comark, website and tech integration specialist for women who love their work, but not their website. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Kiyoko Nakano. Kiyoko co-creates offers and sales funnels with her clients in the wellness community. She geeks out on all things psychology and loves to research the different things that motivate and empowers her clients' audience. In a stress-filled world, it's her greatest joy to be able to work alongside many coaches who support individuals on topics like stress, overwhelm, gut health, pleasure, and more. Kiyoko supports the creation of her clients' offers in a way that will deepen connection and empowerment. She also takes care of the majority of the tech side, sales funnel buildout, which I'm so excited to dive into, so that her clients can focus on their clients and not get overwhelmed and stuck by the soul-sucking elements of learning a new platform. Kiyoko, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners a little more about how you got to where you are today?
That's a great question. It's a long story, but if I were to just shorten it, I had recently graduated from college and I was kind of one of those, I don't want to work just because I have to work. So I kind of hopped on my way to Southeast Asia. I taught English and I quit within, a year. And I needed something to sustain my traveling plans. And so entrepreneurship kind of just not necessarily fell on my lap because it wasn't that easy to build a business, but it was something that I created out of a need to, support a lifestyle that I wanted to live.
Oh, I love that so much. And so how did you find the world of funnel building and all the tech side of things?
I think I was visiting home, in 2016, from Southeast Asia. I ended up living in Southeast Asia for 5 years, but I was scrolling on Facebook and then I found an ad that said, create your online business, create your, online offer, something like that. And through that funnel, I went through the whole funnel process. I was kind of in that funnel top tier where I was kind of starting to be introduced to, there is a way to create a business. There is a way to earn money online. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then slowly over the years, I, kind of honed in on what I wanted to do, who I wanted to work with. And really, really kind of thankfully focused in with one, coach, online marketing coach. And I, followed her and all of her products. And here I am.
I love that so much. Yeah, I love that you traveled and were in Southeast Asia for 5 years. So what did you find once you left teaching? What were you doing when you were there?
I did, all of the most random jobs that one can find, but I was doing some research with a conservation nonprofit, and through that, actually, a lot of the support I got from that work was starting to build a website. That's not my expertise, but starting to build a website, starting to do things online. And and some of it was also kind of supporting, organizations nearby with the things that they needed, whether it was, virtual assistance work, whether it was graphic design, very, very simple stuff on Canva at the time. And all of the things that a business might need, I kind of did whatever they needed so that I can, really start to learn and experience the needs of a business.
Oh, I love that. When I was in my early 20s and living in the Caribbean, that was where I was doing lots of odd jobs. I, was bartending, waiting tables. I worked at the spice shop. I sold jewelry. And I worked in an art gallery. And in working at the art gallery, one of my tasks was to update her website. And that's what started. That's the start of what got me to where I am now.
It's so interesting, right? Because it doesn't feel like, kind of, especially when you're young, there is just a lot of things. You're just like really stressed out. You're like, oh, my friends have these incredible jobs. I have no idea what I want to do. I love my life living in the Caribbean, living in Southeast Asia, but what am I doing with my life? But at the same time, everything you kind of do, whether it's work related or whether it's just like experiencing culture, experiencing a different language, or, all the things that you kind of go through in life kind of come together in one way or another. And it just becomes so beneficial.
It really does. I know for me, like even just the act of like, before I moved to the Caribbean, I had like the secure corporate job. I had a mortgage, I had all the things, and just got to a point in my life where I was like, I don't want to wake up one day and be like, what if? So I said, I'm just going to go. I quit the job. I walked away from the mortgage. It was 2008 and I bought a one-way ticket. And so it was very scary. It was very out of character for me, for someone who likes to have a plan and know like where my next paycheck's coming from, to just up and go. But it was such an incredible growth opportunity. And I really feel that I became the person I am today through that experience. Like that was so important in my life to go and do that. And so we absolutely, like all these different, different journeys and experiences we have, ends up playing such an important role in the bigger picture of our life. So
absolutely.
I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about who you're helping. Tell me about your clients that you're working with now and how you help them.
So a lot of my clients are, kind of an umbrella term is online wellness coaches, but I think a lot of the people I work with tend to be very humanistic, people who are just really care about empowering individuals, whether it's through gut health and nutrition, or whether it's through behavioral services, or even, nail salons, where the focus is to really provide a space for people to have, like a lifestyle of self-care, whatever that may mean to them. So I mainly work with creating sales funnels for them, whether it's, a landing page to share their freebies, or sales pages to start marketing their online course, or creating, the back-end membership area for those courses to kind of be hosted and, have that community aspect to it as well. And I think the big thing that really excites me in this process is that, I think a lot of experts really, really struggle to kind of talk in a way that makes sense for people who don't really know about their services yet, or what, not even just services, but just the solution, I guess, where, maybe your gut health course talks all about, I don't know, not just nutrition, but your mental health, for example. And it's really hard when experts are like, oh, I have all these ideas and knowledge, but I don't really know how to talk in a way that my audience talks. And I think being able to share, what the, speaking of psychology, what the subconscious beliefs are, can really help, because when you're able to talk and bring light to, say, shame that someone might have, it's like, oh my God, someone has actually experienced this exact thing that I have experienced. And there's an offer. There is even like a freebie where I can just check it out, see if this person is legit or not. So I guess like the whole package would be understanding your audience, being able to communicate like them, and then creating, I guess I call it like the online infrastructure, the sales funnel systems, and the courses, and the online home to be able to welcome people into your world.
Oh, I love all that. Yeah, I have a number of clients that are in the health and wellness space, and it's mostly the websites I've done for them are like for their practice that they have an in-person practice. They're not creating the courses and doing like the online aspect of it, aside from the fact they're now doing online telehealth after, COVID and everything. And so they moved to that space, but they're not creating courses or really freebies or anything yet. We've built a website for them. And I'm like, when you're ready, there is an next
Yes.
but for now, if you just.
And it's such a, it's such a different world to have an online business in addition to your brick and mortar, but there's always pros and cons, but it's so great that through COVID, we've, a lot of us have kind of been forced to accommodate the online space where you can absolutely support people who you may not have been able to before, and maybe bring in some passive income and maybe, have an additional offer that's not so location based.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, I love that. So I want to talk a little bit about the tech side of your business because I just love talking tech. So what is the platform that you're using, your all-in-one, that is kind of the backbone of your business?
So I use the software FG Funnels. It is a white labeled product of Go High Level, but I love the templates that they have. The designs are beautiful. I really resonate with the founders as well, just in terms of values and all that. So I like to use that for all of my clients as well. And actually, my website is on WordPress.
Okay.
But it's interesting. I have everything there, but I'm not confident in WordPress. So for me, your tagline is perfect for me because I have a website, but I don't love it. So I have been thinking about, maybe I'll just transfer it over to FG Funnels one day, or maybe I need to talk to you after this call. But so it is, everything I do recommend is in FG Funnels, just because it's so much easier to, not have to worry about additional costs.
Yeah.
To run the things that you want to run in your business. And of course, if you've been bootstrapping until this point, it's easier to stay with what you have. But if you don't have a huge infrastructure of, courses and thousands of subscribers, then it might just be better overall, long-term to maybe migrate into FG Funnels, or, kind of figure out what it is that you're actually needing and simplifying.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, that's one of my core values is simplification. And I love talking with clients and figuring out, okay, what is the big picture? What's the vision that we're trying to create? And what's the tech that we need? Because, and sometimes I'm not the answer. Sometimes it's
right.
Go over here and talk to this person. Because last year I was getting a ton of discovery call intakes for product-based, physical products, a lot of jewelry, artwork, stuff like that. And I'm like, that's out. I believe in Shopify for any sort of physical product. It's a great platform. I love the user experience as someone who shops online.
Right.
And I send them to my friend Parisa, who is amazing at Shopify. And that's what she does. I'm like, that's where that's meant to be. You want to talk digital products? I can help you. You want to, but not physical products is not my zone. That's not. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's, for us, maybe we've thankfully reached a point where we can say oh no, this is what I like to focus on. And it's such a great place to be, it builds trust, I think, to be able to say, oh, I love that for you, and that's not me. And here's someone that would be really great for you. And it's such a great way to, be able to kind of expand your community of people who can, provide for different needs and have a system that is best fit for someone else.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point about building that community, because I know I'm in a community with a bunch of other web designers, and we send each other referrals all the time, whether it's because someone's too booked up or it's not a good fit or whatever it is. There's so much work out there for all of us. And it's so important, I feel, to work with clients that are a good fit, because when you feel a little red flag or a project that just doesn't really excite you, and you don't listen to that kind of internal feeling.
Yeah, that's a huge, aha for me. I mean, last year I had this whole thing where I think a lot of us kind of tend to hang out with the people who provide similar types of services, maybe because you learned that skill from that person who taught you, or maybe it's, you go to conferences for, I don't know, web designers and funnel makers and whatever, but it's so easy to compare yourself when they're peers. And it's so easy to kind of get stuck in the, oh, this person has this person is so successful. And we were talking a little bit prior about, what things look like online and how successful people might look. And you look at the back end, or you just have a more intimate conversation. It's, so similar for every one of us. And what did you just say about it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Being able to refer other people is so beneficial if you're able to see, the things that you love to work on, and the people who you love to work with. And if you're in a low place, there's also that, comparisonitis type aspect where you don't know what you're talking about, or all of these imposter syndrome feelings that come up.
Absolutely. It's interesting because like you were saying, like I'm in a lot of rooms with people who we do similar things. We can sit and talk funnels all day long.
Yeah.
And then there was a situation where I was on a call where I wasn't in a room with people having that same conversation. And I spoke up and was talking about, this whole thing. And like everyone just kind of stopped and was staring. They're like, wow. I'm like, it didn't feel that like mind-blowing information to me, but to them who aren't used to just sitting around, I'm on Voxer all day long talking about, different strategies and funnels and like website stuff with my mastermind gals. And it's so interesting when you do get out of the room,
right,
of your peers who are doing similar thing. And you're just in a room of online business owners who, struggle with the tech, don't understand the funnel piece of it and all that. And that can also really build up your confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels so good when you're finally like outside of that. I mean, I didn't until recently kind of start to explore communities outside of the funnel building and, online business world. And it really does boost your confidence and feel like you can make an impact, really, really, truly, honestly, because obviously there's a lot of business owners who really focus on their expertise, and that's how it should be, where you're able to delegate the tasks that you don't want to do and focus on the things that really bring joy. And I think you mentioned earlier, like, it's so great to be able to focus on the things that bring you joy, because for me, the biggest challenge since I first started my business in 2017 was, however many years that's been already, but just showing up online, because obviously we don't have a brick and mortar store. We don't have a shop front to, just exist in where people may walk by. Obviously, your location might matter, but a lot of online business is really showing up in communities, making connections. And when, you're an introvert, or when you feel like you don't know anything in the space and you're just learning, it can be so hard to put yourself out there being like, hey, I don't know shit. Please help me. Or even just be like, hey, it doesn't matter that I don't know much, but this is what I'm working on and I'm learning. And still make connections. And I think with social media, last year I had this huge light bulb moment of, it was so hard for me to show up because I wasn't allowing myself to talk about the things that really, light me up. And it felt like, because I'm a funnel builder, I'm a strategist, all I can talk about is tech. All I can talk about is funnels. All I can talk about is, whatever it is. And I love the business side, but it doesn't really light me up to talk about the tech all the time. which is interesting. So when I started, really exploring what it is that I wanted to talk about, it was more about the vulnerability aspect, the more of the imposter syndrome, the more psychological, like the shame aspect, the fear, and I didn't want it to be like a emotion dumping on my audience, but more of a just like openly sharing. And that really helped me because it's what I enjoy talking about.
Well, and that's so interesting too, because like I've built websites for clients that still have never launched their business.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because of it's not that simple. You have to get visible and you have to show up, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not the things people typically are talking about. It sounds like you're talking about that, which is amazing, because that's like that little known thing. Like, what is entrepreneurship really? It's a lot of really hard looking hard into yourself and a lot of growth. That's really what it is.
Yeah. Especially for kind of like lifestyle brands where we're not trying to build a huge corporation with hundreds and thousands of employees. It really is about being able to connect, whether it's through our offers or whether it's through our personalities. It's so hard to really stand out if we don't really lean into the things that really make us, happy and like really make us fearful and all of that. And it's interesting. It really is.
I love all this mindset talk. And I would love to know when you're feeling kind of imposter syndrome, because we all feel it and it never goes away. How do you handle that? What do you do? Is there anything you tell yourself, or how do you kind of get yourself out of it?
I mean, that's a great question because I don't always do what I hope to do, in an ideal world. My general reaction when I'm feeling that way, whether it's conscious or not, is to hide. I always hide. It's so easy for my audience to tell when I'm in a low place because I'm not posting. And there's always going to be the strategies of, oh, you just need to batch your content and post when it's, when it's so that you're not having to rely on yourself when you're in a bad place. And that's 100% valid. And I'm not there yet. So, it's always kind of like, for me, recognizing, what it is that I'm feeling is really important. I think, I think a lot of the times it could be that I don't know what to post because I have this perfectionism of feeling like every single post I make or every interview I'm attending or every, thing I put out there in the world has to be life-changing. And it's such a ridiculous like idea to have, like, but I have it, that's just a fact. So I think when that does happen, again, I try to recognize what it is that I'm feeling. And two, I try to remind myself that, consistency and like being able to share these feelings is really important. Because you don't know who's watching. There's a lot of lurkers. There's a lot of people who just, like to read your content and never like or never comment or never really make interactions until maybe later on. So, and I think I also try to really focus on my clients in those moments, because I know that when I can have conversations where I'm like, oh, I do actually know stuff, or I do actually have a skill that can impact this business. I think it really helps me to feel like I'm making an impact, feel like I'm helpful in some way.
Oh my gosh, so good. I can relate to everything you just said so much. I just, at the time of this recording, I just actually launched a passion project course on cheese.
I love cheese. So
and
I'm really excited about
it's kind of random. And to people who've been following me in my audience, like it makes sense because I talk about cheese all the time. I'm always posting my cheese plates. But to people who don't know me, and they're just like, oh, that there was someone who looked at the sales page and there was a challenge and a group and all the things to help get it done for accountability. And she was like, oh, I went and clicked on your sales page because she was following this cheese course that I was talking about. And she's like, I assumed you were like a chef or something. And then I heard your website, like you do websites in tech and you just did a course on cheese. Like that's even more amazing. I'm like, well, cheese is delicious.
It is. It's dangerous. It is so dangerous and so amazing at the same time.
But I still had like all that little voice like popping up so much this last week because it just like fully went out and launched yesterday. And like, I emailed my list about it and told the world about it. And it was so funny because I'm like, lauracomark.com/cheese.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
It was, but yeah, that same little imposter voice of like, what do you like? You do websites and tech. Like, what do you know about cheese? As I'm building this course, I'm like, but I do know a lot because I love cheese and I consume a lot of cheese. But it's going back to what you were saying earlier too about like the things that light us up. And the things you love talking about. I mean, I was telling I was talking to one of my friends on Voxer this morning. It was early and I was like, sorry, I was up really late last night eating cheese. And she's like, that is so on point. I'm like, well, I was because I had this like cheese plate that was just really good. And I was just sitting there eating it. And it was delicious. But yes, like again, finding those things that light us up, that make us happy and make business like just that much more fun. Like, it's kind of silly, but it's okay for us to do those things. Like it's our business. We can do the things that light us up.
Exactly. And, the people who do love cheese are going to be really excited. And obviously it's a very specific niche that attracts people. It's so interesting because I think a lot of people feel like, they need to appeal to everyone. And it's scary, of course, right? The online space is very scary and very aggressive at times. And, it doesn't mean you have to post something about politics or post something that's really, polarizing or post something that you might never share at a family dinner. So, obviously that part of the internet exists. And there's also going to be something that really lights you up, really just is so, what's the word? Just something that you can really talk about with ease and excitement that's gonna be, shared by other people who also want to talk about it all the time. So definitely lean into those because it's so much harder to white knuckle yourself into only talking about a specific topic and forcing yourself to post when it's just not, some of us, it's just not in our nature to share all the time.
Yep. Oh, I agree so much. I've always struggled with the visibility piece of having my own business. I worked with a mindset coach for a couple of years just to try to like get to the point where I could email my list because I wouldn't email them because I was too scared for the longest time. And then I finally would I'd hit send and I'd like shut down the computer and take the dog out. Done out.
Do it and run. Yeah.
Run. Yeah. And so like when you talk about that, your audience knows when you're kind of in a low because you stop posting and hide, like I can relate to that so much because I feel that deeply in my core.
Yeah. Permitting is a very comforting thing to do. And it can be difficult as a small business owner.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Oh my goodness. So I would love to know, what would you say is like one of the biggest challenges that you've overcome since you've started your business?
I think it is that like the being okay to not okay, I guess, but being unapologetic in my wholeness as a person and not only showing up as a funnel builder or a strategist. And I think the more successful online coaches tend to share more about their lives, whether it's, cheese or whether it's their cats or whether it's their, relationship or, whatever it is. I think when we filter ourselves, it's so easy for everyone else to fill in the blanks for us. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a little bit more in control of how people saw me and how I wanted people to see me. Of course, I want people to see me as a online business owner and marketer and all of that. But in addition to that, I want to be known as someone who can talk about, how do you understand your audience based on the concepts of like shame or the concepts of not, and obviously there's like very sleazy marketers out there that use it to, in a very unethical way, but being able to like really understand your audience and be able to connect with them with your own stories, with your wholeness, and being able to accept that you are whole and you don't have to be just a sliver in order to be accepted by your audience, I guess.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I know when I can just, I try to be very real and honest with my audience about, some of the struggles I'm going through and like the hardships of having an online business, of being a mom and trying to juggle all these things. And those are the messages that I find resonate the best. Those are the emails that I get the most replies on and all those sort of things. So I am a huge fan of celebrating wins. That is one of the reasons I create so many cheese plates, to celebrate all my wins. I would love to know what's something we could celebrate about you, something you're proud of that you're like, oh, I did that thing and it felt really hard and I got out at the end. Like, what could we celebrate?
I think, I mean, I'm going through it right now. I think, so I just got married in June, and there's just been a lot of, when you're away for a while as a small business owner, you're away. Of course, you might have a team, and you might be able to, delegate certain things to other people, but it has been a blank where it's just so apparent that consistency is so incredibly important. And, obviously it has been an incredible, joyful part of my life, but it's also definitely showing up in terms of revenue currently. And I think for me, it's been a huge win to be able to kind of not take it personally, like, going backwards and like being like, oh, it's because you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't prepare yourself, and, nitpicking all the things that I didn't do. And right now, I think it's kind of just recognizing that there are seasons in business. First of all, summer is a great time for people to really spend time with their families, and that's a great thing. And for me, I'm, kind of seeing it as a time to really, I'm really, being intentional about what I focus my attention on and what I want to work on in my own business. Because it really doesn't help us long-term to bully ourselves into thinking that we're awful entrepreneurs or awful online business owners. And being able to like talk about it without being fearful, I guess, that people might see me as this or that, and yeah.
Oh, I love that. I had my business coach that I'm working with currently, she had asked, there's an offer I want to create. And she's like, oh, can you have it done by the end of August? I was like, you're out of your mind. No, I can't have it done by the end of August. Like, it's summertime. I got a bunch of discovery calls lined up. Yeah. I'm just going to be realistic with myself and not try to put expectations that I know I'm not going to reach because it's summer. And then school's going to start. And no, she's like, end of September. I'm like, we can shoot for that. But that's something I know for me. I've tried this, especially this last year. I've gotten a lot better at giving myself grace and trying not to put so much pressure on myself that I can't always, like, life happens. And being able to just run my business in a way that feels not stressful and not, like there's just so much. And like that, I was feeling that for the past few years. And this year has felt a lot more like mellow.
Yeah. It feels, and I think a lot of people feel the feast or famine cycle. And it's so much, there's more ease when you can accept things with, this is kind of the cycle of nature. And of course, we can continue to work for consistency and less of a low, but also not being so like aggressively stressed, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I love that. I have had so much fun with this conversation. I just want to sit and talk with you all day long.
I'm gonna hopefully maybe talk more about like cheese with you after this, because
Yes.
I love that.
I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone when they're growing and scaling their business that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
I would probably say to connect, have coffee chats with your business friends more often and really get real. Because a lot more people are experiencing exactly what you're feeling than you might imagine.
I love that. I feel like we're all striving for more human connection in these last few years. And I think that's the thing that people are missing out on the most. And so when you're able to get that connection, I do it through Voxer. I have so many Voxer chats but I can go down through my list and just do my check-ins, be like, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so in 2 weeks. Let me see how she's doing. Let me check in, see how life is going. So I love that. I think that's so important for us to and a great reminder, like continue checking in with everyone, because just because it looks pretty on Instagram doesn't mean they're not struggling.
Right.
Right. Use a friend to talk to. Oh my God.
It's just so much more fun when you're able to share things with other people.
Absolutely. Kiyoko, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners where they can come hang out with you, find out more about you, all the things?
So on most channels, it's at Kiyoko Sophia. You can go to kiyokosophia.com or kiyokosophia.co for more of my funnel stuff. But just come find me. I would love to chat. If you want to talk shame and all of the fears and imposter syndrome, which might scare you away, but if you do, then my inbox is always open.
I love that. I will link all that up in the show note. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was so much fun.
Thank you. I had so much fun too.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.